It was a cool October afternoon in 1985, deep in the quiet suburbs of Arleta, California. The streets were calm, the air crisp with the smell of autumn leaves. 17-year-old Michele Missy Avila was supposed to be home by dinner. She never made it. Her mother, Irene, remembered the moment she realized something was wrong. The house felt too still. Missy's bed was untouched, her purse still hanging on the chair. It wasn't like her daughter to vanish, not without a call, not without a note. Hours turned into panic, panic into dread. Irene called everyone, friends, neighbors, the police, but no one knew where Missy had gone. That night, the small California town changed forever. Missy wasn't an ordinary teenager. She was radiant. Long brown hair, warm hazel eyes, a smile that could turn heads. At school she was friendly, outgoing, and effortlessly popular. But popularity has a cost. Jealousy simmered beneath the surface, especially among the people she called her best friends. Severson and Laura Doyle. Karen and Missy had known each other since childhood. They shared secrets, sleepovers, and late-night talks about crushes and college dreams. But as they grew older, things changed. Missy became the girl everyone liked, and Karen hated that. Her envy wasn't loud, it was slow and poisonous, and Laura, eager to fit in, followed wherever Karen led. The day Missy disappeared, neighbors remembered seeing her climb into a brown car with Laura. The girls waved cheerfully before speeding off. That was the last time anyone saw her alive. 2 days later, hikers in the Angeles National Forest stumbled upon something horrifying. In a shallow creek, tangled between rocks and fallen leaves, lay the body of a young girl. Her hair fanned out like dark silk in the water. Her wrists had deep marks where she'd been restrained, and her face, once full of life, was barely recognizable. The coroner confirmed what everyone feared. It was Michele Missy Avila. Cause of death, drowning. But this was no accident. There were signs of a struggle, bruises on her arms, and defensive wounds on her hands. Someone had fought her, and won. Detectives swarmed the small community. They interviewed friends, classmates, and neighbors. Karen and Laura were among the first to be questioned. They cried through their statements, shaking, insisting they'd dropped Missy off after an argument and hadn't seen her since. Karen even comforted Missy's mother, showing up at vigils and promising to help find whoever did this. But behind that performance was a secret darker than anyone could imagine. As days passed, detectives noticed something strange. Karen and Laura inserted themselves into every part of the investigation. They called police constantly, demanded updates, and even showed up at Missy's home uninvited. They cried loudly at her funeral, hugging everyone in sight, especially Irene, the mother of the girl they killed. The guilt, however, began to show in ways they couldn't hide. Friends told investigators about tension between Missy and the two girls, rumors of jealousy, fights over boys, whispers that Missy was stealing attention. One friend recalled Karen yelling at Missy weeks before her death, accusing her of being fake, of thinking she was better than everyone else. Missy had laughed it off, not realizing how serious Karen's rage had become. But the police had little hard evidence. There were no witnesses at the creek, no fingerprints, no signs of forced entry or abduction. The case went cold, or so it seemed. For 3 long years, Missy's mother lived with questions that never found answers. She'd see Karen and Laura walking around town, living their lives, smiling like nothing had happened. It tore her apart. But Irene never gave up. She believed that one day someone would tell the truth. Then, one night, the phone rang. It was a woman's voice, hesitant, shaky. She said she couldn't live with the secret any longer. "I know what happened to Missy," she whispered. Detectives met with her the next day. What she revealed blew the case wide open. She had been there that night, hiding in the shadows. She saw Karen, Laura, and Missy drive into the forest. She thought they were going to hang out, maybe smoke, maybe talk. But instead, she heard shouting, splashing, and screams. When she ran closer, she saw Karen holding Missy's head underwater while Laura stood by, frozen. Then silence, only the sound of running water. The witness never went to the police out of fear of Karen's temper, fear of being blamed. But years later, guilt crushed her. Detectives reopened the case. Old friends were re-interviewed, statements re-examined, evidence reanalyzed. The puzzle finally began to form a picture, one of betrayal, obsession, and cruelty disguised as friendship. Karen Severson and Laura Doyle were arrested at their homes. News cameras captured their stunned faces as they were led away in handcuffs. Their neighbors couldn't believe it. They were always together, one said, best friends since forever. When police searched Karen's home, they found journals, angry writings about Missy, phrases like, "she thinks she's perfect," and "one day she'll get what she deserves," filled the pages. The girls were charged with second-degree murder. But as investigators dug deeper, one haunting question remained: how could two best friends commit such a brutal act against someone they once loved? At trial, prosecutors described the scene in vivid detail. Karen and Laura had lured Missy into the forest under the guise of making peace after their argument. But once there, the confrontation escalated. Karen accused Missy of flirting with her boyfriend, of betraying their friendship. When Missy tried to walk away, Karen grabbed her hair. Laura hesitated, pleading for them to stop, but she didn't intervene. The fight moved toward the creek. And then Missy was forced face first into the water. As Karen pressed down, Missy fought back, clawing at her attacker's hands, gasping for air, trying to scream. But no one heard her. The current washed away the sound. When it was over, Karen stood shaking, her hands trembling, staring down at the body of the girl who used to be her best friend. She told Laura, "No one will ever believe we did this." But someone did. And as the truth began to unravel, it revealed something even more chilling. Something that made investigators question just how long Karen had been planning this. Because inside her diary, beneath the rage-filled entries, detectives found one short, cryptic line written weeks before the murder. "When she's gone, maybe I'll finally feel seen." That was the moment detectives realized. This wasn't just a fight gone wrong. This was premeditated, calculated, a teenage obsession that turned into cold-blooded murder. But as they prepared for trial, another twist emerged, one that would turn the case upside down and make the courtroom gasp in disbelief. The trial of California versus Severson and Doyle drew national attention. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, classmates, neighbors, and Missy's grieving family. Everyone wanted to see the two young women who had smiled through their friend's funeral, pretending to be victims, not killers. Karen Severson walked in first, head high, her hair tied neatly as if she was going to a job interview, not standing trial for murder. Laura Doyle followed, trembling, barely able to look up. Two girls who once giggled in sleepovers now sat behind cold wooden tables under the eyes of the law. The prosecution wasted no time. They painted a portrait of jealousy that had simmered for years, a friendship twisted into obsession. Karen's envy wasn't sudden, it had been building since junior high. She couldn't stand how Missy drew attention wherever she went, from boys, from teachers, even from strangers. Laura, always the follower, went along to keep Karen's approval. Together they formed a toxic triangle, one that would eventually snap. Detectives testified about the diary entries, the angry notes Karen had written months before the murder. One line stood out to the jury: "She makes me feel invisible." It wasn't evidence of just anger, it was proof of motive. Missy was the mirror that reflected everything Karen wanted to be: beautiful, loved, free. And Karen hated her for it. The witness who came forward after 3 years took the stand next. The courtroom went silent as she described the night Missy died. Her voice trembled. "They told her they wanted to talk things out," she said. "They said they were done fighting. I thought they meant it. But they didn't." The witness recounted every moment. The shouting by the creek, the sound of splashing water, and the stillness afterward. "Missy begged them to stop," she whispered, tears rolling down her face. "And they didn't." Missy's mother, Irene, covered her face in the front row. The room could feel her pain, raw, decades-old pain finally given a voice. Across from her, Karen stared ahead, cold, expressionless. Laura, meanwhile, broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. When the defense took over, they tried to rewrite the story. Karen's lawyer argued it was an accident, that a fight broke out and things got out of control. They painted her not as a killer, but as a scared teenager who didn't mean to go that far. Laura's attorney went even further, claiming she had been coerced, manipulated by Karen, terrified to say no. But the prosecution had one last card: the tapes. Detectives had secretly recorded Karen during her police interviews long before she was arrested. On one of those tapes, she slipped. She mentioned details that only the killer could have known. How Missy had been pushed into the water, how her hair had tangled in the rocks. When asked how she knew, Karen laughed nervously. "Everyone in town knows that," she said. But they didn't. That detail had never been released to the public. That slip cracked her defense wide open. As the trial continued, the public saw the chilling duality of Karen Severson, a young woman who played the role of grieving friend while secretly hiding a monster within. After Missy's murder, she had lived near the Avila family, comforting Irene, attending vigils, and even crying on camera during interviews. She told reporters, "Whoever did this to my best friend, they'll pay." No one suspected that the murderer was the girl giving that interview. Laura Doyle, however, couldn't maintain the act. As the evidence mounted, she began to crumble. Midway through the trial, she asked to speak privately with her attorney. Days later, she agreed to testify against Karen in exchange for a lesser charge. The courtroom held its breath as Laura took the stand. She spoke softly at first, barely audible. But as she went on, her words sliced through the silence like a knife. "Karen told me we were going to meet Missy to talk things out," she said, "but on the way she kept saying things like, 'She needs to be taught a lesson.' I thought she was exaggerating. I didn't think she meant this." Laura described the confrontation in chilling detail. Karen started yelling, calling her names, saying she was fake, a liar. Missy tried to walk away. Karen grabbed her hair. "I told them to stop, but Karen pushed her. She hit the water. Missy was screaming and I froze. I didn't help. I just watched." The jury stared in stunned silence. When Laura finished her testimony, Karen leaned toward her defense attorney, whispering something furious under her breath. Her mask had finally cracked. After weeks of testimony, closing arguments began. The prosecution reminded the jury of the diary, the witness, the confession slip, and the betrayal. "This wasn't just a crime of passion," the prosecutor said. "It was a crime of envy. It was planned, calculated, and carried out by someone Missy trusted with her life." When the verdict came, the courtroom was packed. Irene sat trembling in the front row, clutching a photo of Missy. The clerk read the words that would finally bring her a measure of peace. Guilty of second-degree murder. Karen Severson and Laura Doyle were sentenced to 15 years to life in prison. But for Irene, there was no victory, only a hollow kind of justice. Her daughter was gone, and nothing could bring her back. Years passed. Both women served their time, but what came next shocked everyone, especially Missy's family. In 2011, nearly 25 years after the murder, Karen Severson was released on parole. Instead of disappearing quietly, she did something no one expected. She published a memoir. The book detailed her time in prison and even recounted Missy's murder from her perspective. It was titled, "My Life, I Lived It." The audacity infuriated Irene. How could the girl who took her daughter's life now profit from it? How could she make money, fame, or sympathy from the story of the very person she drowned? The outrage spread fast. Talk shows, radio programs, and newspapers picked it up. People called it a slap in the face to justice. Irene, though heartbroken, decided to fight back. With the help of lawmakers, she pushed for legislation to stop convicted criminals from profiting off their crimes. That law would later be known as Missy's Law. It was a small but powerful legacy, one born from tragedy, meant to protect other families from reliving the same pain. But as Irene fought for justice, whispers began to surface. Rumors that Karen's version of events might not have told the whole truth. Some people claimed that Laura had left out key details to save herself. Others believed there might have been a third person there that night, someone who had never been caught. And one of those whispers came from an unexpected source. A retired detective who said the case file was missing something critical. A piece of evidence that was logged the night of the murder, and then mysteriously vanished. A piece that, if found, could change everything the world thought it knew about that night in the forest.